board meeting to order. Just before we get started, first I'd like to say thank you to all of our staff that have been working hard on this. I appreciate you coming in and hanging out with us here tonight. I thank you for board members for giving up their Sunday evenings for also coming in. And one other thing I'd like to say is, besides turning microphones on if they're not already, is that there's been some constituents that have been very concerned about not being able to hear the meetings, especially when they're videotaped, and they want to watch the videotape. And I don't mean to point people out, but Chris, you really need to make sure that your microphone is
okay.
Thank you. Okay, so with that, Jamie, will you take the roll?
Penny Burstad. Here. Chris Freeman.
Here.
Heather Clanderman.
Here.
Clint Moses. Dan Paulson.
Here.
Amy Earl Swanson.
Here.
David Steyer.
Here.
Jim Swanson.
Here.
Tricia Thompson.
Here. Okay, we have a quorum to conduct business. Okay, anything to do with the agenda order and approval revision? Seeing none, we'll move right along. Okay, discussion plans for closure of schools in the SDMA. Joe?
Okay, thank you, and thank you, board members, for being willing to come in on the Sunday night. I know Amy kind of already covered some of that. But I also just want to take a moment also to thank the leadership team. In fact, if you guys wouldn't mind, would you please just kind of come stand up here and face the camera? I just want to make sure everyone understands who everyone is. And there's reasons for that, but the leadership team could come up. Yeah, come on up here, face the camera. Brian, yeah, sir, right over there, please. Michelle, come on up. Yeah, Casey, Kevin, please come on up. So, starting on my right, so the camera's left, Casey Drake is our high school principal. Maybe wave or something, Casey. Kevin Tomaszewski is our director of building and grounds. Michelle Closer is our director of school nutrition. Samantha Hoyt is our director of human resources. Tony Kowalski is our director of student services. Katie Krieger is our director of technology. And Brian Seguin is our assistant superintendent for curriculum instruction. Now, before you all sit down, I just do want to point out that in the event that I am incapacitated or quarantined or whatever may happen in the future, the way our succession plan works is Brian Seguin, he would be next in charge, and then the rest of the team would support him. Certainly the building principals are the head of their buildings, but in terms of district leadership, we do have a succession plan with Brian being next in charge, and then Tonya, and then Samantha, and if it goes that far down, God help us all. All right, thank you. And I would like to say thank you to the leadership team, and there's others that aren't able to be here tonight. You know, I think pretty much everyone out there canceled a trip. I know my family was supposed to be in the Grand Canyon today. Canceled a trip, not only to be responsible, but also anticipating that we would need to work for the school district. We spent a large portion of yesterday, that was yesterday, right? Working on our planning. And planning's been going on for quite some time, but certainly the circumstances have changed a lot. And what was a fairly linear process to start with has really accelerated a ton since about 4 o'clock on Friday. We felt pretty good going into Friday in terms of planning and spring break coming up, and then everything just kind of turned outside a bit. So that's why I requested to have a special meeting, and I think that's why we're here, just to make sure that the board, but also our staff and our community members have a very good idea what things are like in the school district, and I want people to know that moving forward, we feel like we have as good of a plan as we can have at this point. So loaded into the board docs, and this is in the public section for anybody to view, is a report, and this report has been generated through all the leadership meetings, all the pre-planning, and then also what we've been hearing from the state and the county health department. So if it's okay with board members, perhaps I could go through the report, and if you want to stop for questions, you could. I think we're probably going to get to most questions at this point, but I definitely want to take questions, and I want to get any feedback that board members have. Directors, typically, you're not directly involved in the discussion unless requested to. Knowing how much has been going on though, if I say something that seems to be contrary to our understanding on things, please be sure to speak up. Okay, so the first section is simply about the coronavirus and what do we know. And it's hard not to know everything, because you look at anything, whether it be a newspaper, social media, internet, whatever, TV, whatever it is, this is pretty much the #1 topic everywhere. But what I suggest is continue to check out the website for the Centers of Disease Control. I think from what I've seen, that's been very reliable in terms of providing up-to-date information, and that's the website that I've been spending the most time on trying to stay updated. I want to point out to our students, staff, and community members that it's being recommended that there is no need to panic. At this point, as far as the last time I was contacted, there are no confirmed cases in Dunn County. Not everywhere can say that, but right now there are no confirmed cases that I know of. What's being reported is that many people who have contracted this disease have experienced mild to moderate symptoms and recover. That, everyone's going to react differently, but the majority of people have been mild to moderate symptoms and recovered. And I think it's important to know why schools were closed. Anytime there's a huge decision like that, it kind of came as a shock. I didn't know about it. No one in the district knew about it until it came across social media and then some subsequent information after that. But these school closures are part of an effort to slow down the spread of this disease. And in the past 24, 36 hours, there's been a lot of discussion about that. And one resource that I found to be extremely helpful was a video put together by Dr. Alex Hall from UW Stout. And Dr. Hall explained, and the name of it was Flatten the Curve, and explained that through prevention measures like closing our schools, the goal is to make sure that we don't have a peak that would overwhelm the healthcare system. So I did link that into my report. It's about an 8-minute video. If you haven't had a chance to see that, I highly encourage that you take a look at that. So that's what we know right now about the coronavirus. Are there any questions or additional information that anybody wants to add? Okay, I'll keep moving then. So the order to close schools, what do we know? Well, we know that all schools across Wisconsin will be closed starting at 5:00 p.m. on Wednesday, March 18th. That impacts the school district of the Menomonie area a little different than some because we're already on spring break. There is no school in Menomonie next week. Due to the concerns with the coronavirus, we did close down our schools over spring break. We shut down all activities, all athletics, all practices, and all community events that have been scheduled in our school facilities. So we had already done that, but the biggest impact for us right now would be the fact that we already know that schools are going to stay closed until at least April 6th. That is something we didn't know. We weren't able to plan for with our staff before people left. Knowing though that we had spring break and knowing that the cases were increasing, on Friday before people left for the day, a directive was given to students and staff to take all essential items home, especially for the students, whether we're talking about their devices, charging cords, medications, personal items, winter clothes. A lot of that stuff stays in school on a regular basis, and we appreciated the cooperation we received from our staff members, our parents, and our students. Since the closing announcement on Friday afternoon, there's been a lot of questions, and even in our planning, it's really made it difficult to plan, not knowing the answers to some of those questions. Probably the question number one was, what does it mean to close schools? Does that mean that the schools are shuttered? Does it mean that essential personnel only? will we be able to come in next week and do payroll and pay bills and all that? Last night, we received some guidance from the governor's office that the school closure and the specifics of the school closure really is up to the local school district. What it is for sure is that students are not to be in class, students are not to be in school. However, it is up to our determination in our local situation whether or not staff members will be allowed to report. So for a while we were planning on 2 scenarios. That definitely gave us some important direction that allows us to plan for a more directed scenario, and that's been very helpful. One thing to point out though, that in the governor's order, April 6th was listed as the date. We believe it's going to be at least April 6th. There is different guidance coming out, and certainly that's going to change day by day, but there has been talk of extended closure, even up to 8 to 20 weeks. Now, that there's been no official declaration about that. There's been no indication whether it would be shorter or longer. I think a lot of that will be determined on the numbers of cases and how the different cancellations may have an impact on slowing the spread. But I do think it's important to understand that we need to look at the closure up through April 6th, but we also need to understand that it could be much longer. I also think it's important to realize that with the current closure, we're talking about 10 school days in Menomonie. The first week we had already planned in our calendar to be out for spring break. So we are looking at, so far, 10 school days that we will have lost. We've been so fortunate this year not to have any snow days. So if you look at this calendar compared to last year's calendar, in the event that we're able to return to school on April 6th, we actually will have more hours of instruction this year than we did last year. So I know everyone's concerned about potential loss of instruction, but I think it's important to note that we have had a very good year. There has been much instruction, and if we're able to return on April 6th, I think we'll be able to pick up pretty well where we left off. We also know that this closure, it's not as if the school district can flip a switch and all of a sudden turn on online learning. The governor's order talked about the ability to have virtual learning continue, and we do have a number of students that their full program is virtual, and I'm assuming that virtual programming will continue as it is. But it simply is not possible to take kindergarten through 12th grade and tell staff members when they come back after spring break that we're going to have an online program in our school district. Now, we've taken many steps over the last several years to integrate online tools, or I should say technology tools, into our instruction. I think we've had a very balanced approach to that. We've really prioritized devices for all students in grades 6 through 12. We have a number of teachers that use online classrooms and online resources, but we have a very comprehensive approach in Menomonie. We also have many teachers who are experts in other areas of instruction, and teaching through a virtual format isn't something that has been mandated, even though it has been encouraged. And I think it's important to know that not all teachers have the same level of expertise, not only with virtual programming, but all programming. We also need to understand that when we look at our demographics, when we look at our approximately 3,400 students, not all of our students have access to the internet that is reliable, that is consistent, and there are many students that have access that isn't available at all. I think it's awfully neat that some places like Spectrum are offering to provide internet access for people, but again, that's not something that you can all of a sudden call and expect to have 1,000 students in Menomonie up and running with technology.